Today we're going to do a review video covering the CVT MT Shasta rooftop tent. Let's get into it. So for starters, I have the CVT MT Shasta mounted to my 2012 Toyota Tacoma. So there's two versions you can get this tent in. You've got the standard Pioneer series, and then you've also got the hybrid. This is the hybrid. So the hybrid version comes with a hard aluminum roof, these T-slot channels on each side. That also comes with some load bars. Don't have them installed now, but I did before. And then you also have this is the ladder mount right here. So these are the brackets that you attach the ladder to, which I'll show you in a bit. But you don't leave the ladder here on full time, but it gives you the flexibility to store some things on top of the rooftop tent. And at first, I even had a solar panel mounted on top, which is really why I chose to go with this to begin with. Now, as we just took a look at that aluminum roof, you could see that the finish had kind of come off. That happened right after we went up to the mountains this winter, and we got a lot of snow on top of the truck. For some reason, right after that, a lot of the finish started coming off. So one note on that. Now, I had noted that I had a solar panel mounted originally. The reason why I removed that is it was just too difficult to disconnect every single time I needed to open the rooftop tent. And just given that the rooftop tent needed to open out this way, and I had the solar panel mounted with the wiring kind of like coming down, I was trying to have it nice and subtle and out of the way. It just became difficult. I knew I was going to need to disconnect it every single time, but it just became more trouble than what it was worth to me. I ended up just relying solely on my dual battery system and my DC to DC charger to give me the power output that I needed, since while I was at camp, the solar panel would be facing the ground anyways. Now, the other characteristic that you get of this hybrid tent is how the road cover just primarily covers the siding, the perimeter of the rooftop tent. And you've kind of got this overhang that comes and wraps around the bottom, which kind of gives it its sealant from the elements. Now you got a buckle, one on each corner and one on each side of the rooftop tent. So these buckles, for some reason, have become somewhat of a problem for me. Now in this one, this buckle has done a good job at staying in place. I don't know what it is, but in 3 of the corners and actually one of the centers, the buckles would just fall off. There's nothing that I could do to give them proper tension to hold them into place, and so they would just kind of just fall off. As you can kind of see this back one right here, the buckle's still on there. The buckle's still on there, but the strap wouldn't stay on, and so I kind of just gave up on this back one. Since it has the covering of the rear window back here, I feel like this is the most protected area, and so I kind of just let that one go. But as we come over to this corner, this one is missing it, and this one is missing it, and overall it hasn't seemed to be a super big problem. These corners still get a lot of tension. The way I've mounted, the position that I mounted the rooftop tent to the load bars has kind of let me just, at least in these corners, tuck in the road cover in between the tent and the load bars, and so that kind of gives it a nice seal to kind of compensate for the buckle being gone. But just a heads up on that. Now, kind of going over that, I actually do wish that I would have just gone with the standard version for a couple reasons. One, obviously having a road cover that just works better. You really do want to make sure that you're able to keep out the elements, and for the most part I haven't really had any problems. However, just to be on the safe side, I would have probably preferred just having a standard road cover for that specific use case. On top of that, I'm always paranoid, since I don't have the ladder attached full time, that one of these trips I'm gonna forget it. I'm gonna get out there and my rooftop tent's gonna be unusable because the ladder supports the weight of the open side. And so for that reason specifically, I really wish that I would have just gone with the standard version. I kind of foresaw me using the storage and the rails on top of the hybrid model and having a solar panel mounted up there all the time, that's why I made the decision to go with this model. But given that you can't mount anything too heavy, and if you do, it's pretty high up there, so it creates a lot of wind drag, and I don't really want to mount anything up there. So with all that being said, just at least for my use case, I probably should have gone with the standard version, and so that's a lesson learned. Now, I do want to note one of the benefits of having the hybrid model is the road cover is pretty easy to disconnect, and honestly, setting up this tent is pretty quick. So why don't we do that right now? So disconnect it there. Already did this one. Disconnected there. There. Then for the hybrid, you got this zipper that comes in the center. Undo that. And it's a little bit more difficult to do one-handed, but then you also have this little clip right here. I'll have to put you guys down for this part. So this little clip right here that I just took out, that's what really creates the most tension along the bottom side. And so really, it probably isn't the end of the world that these buckles come undone and some of them working and some of them aren't, because this is really where you get most of your tension. There's like an elasticy strap that goes around the whole side of it. So after that, what I do is I typically just unmount these corners and then I just push them all the way up. So I'm going to do that on all four corners real quick. So as you can see here, once you get those four corners up, which really nothing to that, you just got these straps, one on each side. So you disconnect that strap. And there's another one up at the front. All right. Now I just got to attach the ladder. And so that's what it would look like when it's back on. I've had 3 problems with this rooftop tent so far. One of which was the straps like we talked about earlier. This ladder pin was another one, actually on a recent trip. The spring, which creates the tension, which holds this in place, when I was taking out the pin on one of my trips, a recent one, that spring came off after I disconnected the pin and I couldn't find it anywhere. And so I reached out to CVT and got another one sent out. They actually sent it out for free, but just another note. Now I've got the extended fly version, so I also need to put in a tension bar and kind of extend out the frame a little bit more, which I'll show you in a second. If you didn't have that, then you'd be pretty much open and just setting up windows if you wanted to now. So the extended fly is all set up. I'll show you guys how that works in a second, but the last thing I need to do is put this new extension pole into place. On my last trip, my tension pole actually broke. Now I'm a little bit bummed because I had to reach out to CVT and order a new one. Cost me about 45 bucks, and they sent me a new one, which seems to be a better quality, but it's not black like the original one, and so I'm a little bit bummed about that, but it'll probably get the job done. So let's do this real quick. Now, just to show you guys how the extended fly version works, there's this arch pole. It just clips into this side right here and that side right there, and then you can kind of see this like U-bar type thing. Goes around the perimeter of the extended fly, and then you've got your tension pole that clips onto this side, and then the inner frame right up there. Very simple, and then you just tighten it. So very easy to set up the extended fly, practically adds 0 time to set up, and well worth it. When you put the tent away, this U-bar right here just basically comes out of those little mounts on each side, and then it just slides in, and then the U-bar will end right here along the side of the tent. Okay, so this is the tent fully set up. I know a lot of people will just you know, that's it. They'll set up the tent, they're good to go, and they won't do the windows and stuff. Now for me, the windows are pretty simple. They only take a second to set up, and I really like the windows, so I definitely like setting those up. Pretty simple how they work. You've got just this little inlet right here. The pole sticks in, attach them to the holes. Can't be simpler than that. Now there is one tent pole that I kind of just don't do now, and it's this back one on the front side of the truck, and it's just because of where the tent's mounted at. Like, it's just too hard to do. Now I have considered, there's like this little piece right here, taking that and maybe attaching like a bungee to it and attaching it somewhere to the roof rack just to tension it, just for like those windy situations. But overall it works pretty good. That's just the one pole I leave undone. Okay, so this is the inside of the rooftop tent. Now I store quite a bit in here. I've got, as you can see here, I've got 2 full-size sleeping bags, 2 I think they're queen size or standard size pillows, whatever, memory foam pillows back there, and then underneath these 2 sleeping bags I also have a this is basically like a 2-person sleeping bag, and so this is what I typically just have in here during the summer months. This is the CVT comfort bag, which basically it's kind of like you can kind of see it's got like the elastic, kind of like a bed sheet. It's made for this specific tent, for this specific mattress, the Mount Shasta. It covers the entire mattress, covers the entire tent, and me and both of my kids actually can all fit in this sleeping bag when it's warm enough to just have that. Now we're in winter and we were just camping in some cold conditions, and so having the extra sleeping bags, we actually just threw those on top of us, and so that was great to have. But during the summer I can run with just this sleeping bag, the 2 pillows in here, and I'm good to go. Now it does take a little bit to get it closed, but obviously it works just fine. As you guys could see, this stuff was all up here before I opened the tent. Here's a view from the other side. These are those pillows I was talking about. I just ordered these off of Amazon. I'll link them in the video description, but they're memory foam pillows, super comfortable. They compress down nice and good, and so they're great for storing inside the tent. So when it's all closed up, I can store all 3 of the sleeping bags, the 2 pillows, the tension pole, and the tent and the window poles all in here, no problem. I do have to give it a little bit of a nudge to close it when I'm doing those straps, but for the most part works pretty good. Store a lot of stuff in here, and I really love that. And then you got a pretty good, I like these windows, they're nice and big. Once it's all opened up, you get a lot of air in here. All right, so I real quick wanted to show you guys the tent without the extra sleeping bags in it. This is how I normally run it, and I actually think today, after I close up this tent, this is how I'm gonna leave it. So I just have the 2 pillows in here, the CVT comfort bag, which is essentially like a flannel sleeping bag with multiple layers, and it fits to the mattress, and so it kind of fits it like a bed sheet. It's the exact size of the CVT mattress. It was pretty pricey. I don't remember exactly what I paid for it, but overall I think it's been worth it. Another thing that I leave in here, or at least bring with me, is this power bank. I bought this off of Amazon. I use this to charge my Apple Watch, my Apple phone, and then it powers the LED strip that came in this tent. And so, super cool little accessory. So I've received some questions about condensation in this tent, so I wanted to talk about that for a second. Now, on my most recent trip, I did notice a little bit of condensation, but mostly it just felt humid in there when we got up in the morning. And so I opened up all the windows and all that. I still, no matter what, even if I don't think that there's condensation in there, I still air it out every morning when I get up. But on this last trip, I did have the rain fly on it. I had extra sleeping bags in there, and there was 3 of us sleeping in it. And so it was a little bit more humid than normal. When I opened up the tent today, it did feel a little humid in there, but the trip was about a month ago now. There wasn't really any mildew or anything like that. It just felt humid inside there. Now I think, just a note on that, that has a lot to do with running it with the rain fly on it. Last year, every trip I went on, I never noticed anything like that. There was one time where I didn't close the windows and some water got in. I think like I had got my truck washed or something like that, and I didn't zip up the windows into the rooftop tent. Water got inside the rooftop tent, and I had mold the next time I opened it up. I was able to get that all out. It didn't actually damage the tent at all, but just a side note on that, I always close up the windows now. But yes, last year I ran most of the year without a rain fly, just because it's less work to close and stuff like that. It's a little bit more lightweight, that kind of stuff, and I just like it better. But given that we're in rainy season and winter right now, been running with the rain fly. Probably about to take that off pretty soon. But I hope that answers that question. One thing I almost forgot, this tent comes with an annex. Now I haven't camped with it just yet, but my plan is for when my wife does come with us, there will be 4 of us. And so my plan is to use the annex with me sleeping on the bottom. Now just one final note on the annex. How I've got the tent set up right now with the bed rack system, which is a little bit lower, doesn't work out all that great. I think the annex would work out much better height-wise if I was either on a taller bed rack or a camper shell or an SUV that was like the full size of a vehicle. Now overall, I'm really impressed with the build quality of this tent. I know I mentioned early on a few problems that I had with it, being the straps and the buckles, the coating of the aluminum top, and then the tension pole breaking. So there have been some minor problems with the tent, but the ladder is extremely sturdy. All the components still feel great. The canvas material still feels brand new. Overall, I think it's a very sturdy, well-built tent. The mattress is extremely comfortable. Been camping for a very long time, and I've always struggled with sleeping on my camping trips, and I've always been looking for good sleeping options. So far, this is the best, most comfortable sleep I've ever had when I'm camping, and you know, you can only expect so much when you're camping, but this really does it for me, and so that's how I feel about it. Now, size-wise, I think you could fit 2 full-size adults and a small kid or a dog just fine. It fit me, my 4-year-old daughter, and my 2-year-old son on our last camping trip. That was the first time I took both of them, and it fit us great. Very comfortable, roomy. I would probably not try for 4 people, but that's my experience with it. So overall, I think it's a really good tent. If I could go back and do it over again, I just wouldn't get the hybrid model. I'd probably still get the same tent. I know that there's a lot of variations in different brands. There's another company, Rome Adventure Company's got a Vagabond rooftop tent, which is very similar to this rooftop tent. If I were to buy a new one, to be honest, that's probably the one that I would try. But overall, as long as, you know, the road cover holds up for me and the problems that I mentioned earlier don't create any more problems for me, I'll probably be sticking with this rooftop tent for a while. Now, just a quick note on these tents. As I mentioned, I have the CVT MT Shasta Hybrid. On CVT's website, they have available the Pioneer Series, small, medium, and large. Apparently, they're no longer using the MT Shasta as the label for the tent. It's just the medium tent now. They also have discontinued the specific model that I have, which is the hybrid model. The only thing that's special about the hybrid model is the hard aluminum top and the road cover. Everything else about this tent should be pretty much the same as the Pioneer model. Now, for anybody looking to get the hybrid version, you'll have to check some places like Facebook Marketplace, eBay, OfferUp, or some other forums. Vilmont Market on Instagram has been a great resource for me for finding secondhand gear. So I think that wraps it for this one. Overall, I think it's a really good tent. Now, if you like this video, you may like another one that I just recently did, just covering the pros and cons of rooftop tents in general and discussing whether they're really worth it. I think by this video you can tell what my final conclusion is for myself, but you may be interested in checking that out as well. So thanks for watching, you guys. Hope to see you out there. We'll catch you in the next one.